Well, if you're thinking to yourself, Barry sure does look older this week than he did last week, there's a reason for that.
That's a
Happy
good reason.
birthday, little uh, related here, but 60 years and 2 days now. I haven't seen you since you were 59.
Well, not much has changed.
Well, I guess I'll kind of leave that alone. But we had a great time. Just to give a little report of had drove up into your driveway and said, "Hey, look out the." Hi, how are you? And Laura pulled it off. You had no clue, or at least you're still telling us that.
I had no clue. But to also include in the report, Mike pulled in the wrong driveway.
That's true. That's true. Barry's road has changed so much that I pulled in the wrong driveway and had to pull out, so it kind of messed up the surprise by a little bit. But you got a few other surprises. Your mom was there, your sister and Larry, along with both daughters came, and a newborn baby.
It was Rebecca Naomi Carr's first opportunity to be at House of David. John and Judy Hughes drove down from around your neck of the woods, not too far from where you're at. So we had a lot of special guests, and the most important one that showed up was the Father and his presence. Yeah. Oh my goodness!
It was quite a time. And we would have had the whole thing would have been on video had you not in your age. I know that you're getting older, so you don't remember things quite as well. And Bill Smith asked me a couple nights ago. He said, "So what happened?" I said, "Well, I literally preached the power out of a computer."
Yeah, you did. And it was my fault that I didn't have it plugged in as is normal. But I was trying to get up there and get it set up and get out of your way. And I forgot one little thing. So a 60-year-old mind doesn't work as well as a 59-year-old mind on occasion.
Yeah, so we lost a little bit of the end there. But it was a great time. Great time being with the group of folks up there at House of David. And I just challenge anybody that's anywhere close to House of David, take a road trip sometime, just to be with the group there. Wonderful people, always great to be with. So, Barry, we turn a page this week into the book of Shemot or Exodus, and I was talking to Daniel last night. Him and Catesby and the kids were over. And he said him and Catesby had sat down and started to read the book of Exodus the night before. And he said something happened to him that was just out of the blue. It's one of those times that, you're kind of going through life and the Father invades your time. That's what happened to him. He said he started to read it and he got stuck. He got stuck on the title of this week's Torah portion, which is names. He said, it just overwhelmed him. That in the midst of all of the people that were in Egypt and all of the people that are today, the Father still knows each of us by our name.
Yeah.
That is an overwhelming thought sometimes. And one that I think that, it's like this, I think the revelation that Daniel was trying to describe is, you know it, but you don't know it. And there comes that time that what you know it becomes what you really know. That it becomes a realization to you. There's things in life that we may know, but then we come to a realization of the knowing. And I think those moments define our lives. When the Father just invades us with this thing of, many people feel like, well, I think we can relate to Moshe. I made some mistakes, bad timing in life, did some things that I shouldn't have done. I guess that I've lost that calling. I felt like there was a time in life that I had this thing that I was supposed to do, but then I got in the way, and backside of the desert is now home, and this is where I'm going to be, is on the backside of the desert until the kingdom comes or I die. And well, que sera, sera. What will be, will be. And then you find a burning bush.
Mm.
And that's the day that defines the rest of your life.
Yeah. We can easily slide into some very general phrases that we've heard before. This too shall pass. That how comforting is that to someone who's going through some sort of trauma or crisis, and you look at them and say, "Well, this will pass."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's a word of wisdom. That really helps. But the reality is, you can't define your future by your past. Sometimes we get into this mindset that what has been is all that there will ever be. That this rut that I'm in, or this thing that I call normal, will never change. I have to learn to be the best that I can be in my current given circumstances, and that's just it. Not always. There's always, and when you look in the scriptures over and over again, people's lives were interrupted by a word from the Father, some appearance. Abraham was living as he normally would in Ur, and whatever sparked the turn of events. The rabbis say that he looked to the heavens and realized an idol can't do this. There must be a master creator, and started looking, who are you? Mm-hmm. Jeremiah was just minding his own youthful business when the word of Yah came to him and said, I called you to be a prophet. And, if you're ashamed of me in front of the faces of men, I'll be ashamed of you, and set him out on a particular route. Ezekiel said, I was just fasting and praying, and Yah showed up, gave him a vision. One occasion he said, he grabbed me by the hair of my head and pulled me in the spirit. The disciples, Kepha and Andrew were just fishing like they had done every day before. And here comes Yeshua. Leave your nets and come follow me. You never know where the moment of interruption is coming. So don't call permanent what Yah is calling temporary. You have to be prepared for the eventuality of Yah showing up. And if he doesn't, be faithful where you're at.
Yeah.
But you never know where he's going to show up and turn your wheel, and you're going to be off in a different direction.
But see, it's the being faithful in where you are that sets up that moment of interruption of your life. There is, you said something about, don't allow your past to define your future. Yeah. The problem that I see with so many, I've done counseling, so have you, for decades, literally, that the vast majority of people that I come in contact with will always allow their past to define them. But our past should not define us. It should be a part of who we become. Moshe had to, in 40 years, there probably wasn't a day that went by that, when you're out there with a bunch of sheep, you got a lot of time to think, and fortunately for him, he doesn't have an iPhone, he doesn't have an iPad, he doesn't have an iPod. He's got a bunch of I am looking at sheep. That's kind of it. And so he had a lot of time to think. I doubt that there was a day that went by that he did not reenact that moment in time. And every time he did, it grew and grew and grew into, I'm a failure. I'm a bigger failure. I'm the world's worst failure. So his whole attitude about himself, what he didn't see is that moment in time that, yes, we could say it was the wrong thing at the wrong time, but that set him on a course to become who he was created to be. He would have never been able to bring forth the Torah from his attitude and the person he had become in the Pharaoh's palace. Because in the Pharaoh's palace, he had learned to be an authoritarian. This was the mindset of the Pharaoh. Authoritarian. I mean, you're working for the guy that thinks he's God, right? Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Pharaoh thinks he's God, and he's treated like God, a God, by all the people. So you don't have any system of justice. You just have the word of Pharaoh, and that's what's done, period. Okay? So this is the attitude that Moshe comes out of the palace with. It's my way or the highway. This authoritarian attitude. He would not have been able to handle the job of bringing forth the Torah to the people from an what was the word I was just using? My mind's going ahead of myself too much. That authoritarian attitude does not bring forth the heart of the Torah. The attitude of a shepherd brings forth the heart of the Torah.
Okay, so if Moshe had been successful in his original attempt to bring deliverance,
yes,
he would have done so with the authority of a prince, which is the authority of the world system.
Yes.
Yah took him 40 years into the wilderness to drain that out of him to where there was no residual mentality of that, to bring him back as a shepherd with the authority of Yah to deliver his people. The deliverer mindset was correct. The authority had to be changed,
mm-hmm.
which speaks to where we are. We think that we are going to deliver people in this nation with the authority of the U.S. Constitution or elected officials or whatever political, and not to say that none of those things are not important. They do. They are, and they have their place. But the authority that we are going to need to operate in to effect the deliverance for people, it's not political or governmental at all. It's the authority of Yah.
Yeah.
So when the government says you cannot participate in society unless you have certain documents that verifies certain medical procedures for you, we'll leave it at that. And people get sick. Where are the people of Yah are not going to show up and say, well, we'll carry you to the local jab station. No, we lay hands on you and believe the Father to heal you. we've asked, where is the authority to heal? It's at a point in time, perhaps in the future, we see spots where healing takes place here, here, and here. This past Shabbat, we had someone at House of David that needed healing.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, when I saw, I wasn't even a part of the prayer process, but I watched my people rise to that occasion and lay hands on the one sick. And they didn't say, well, we hope you, I mean, there was some power going on. And my beloved wife, Laura, was right in the thick of it. And I thought,
yeah.
if I was a power of darkness, I wouldn't be 100 miles from her right now. The warrior came out in her, as it did with others in our congregation. And I thought, I hadn't seen people get prayed for healing like that in years.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, it went on. Mike, there is a point in time coming, I believe, that the anointing for deliverance and for healing, for miraculous things to take place, we're going to run headlong into it, because we met up with a sense of destiny, a sense of timing, a sense of purpose, and we're coming out of the backside of the desert and we're stepping right back in the thick of where people are hurting. Moses showed up and people were devastated and broken and healing.
Oh, yeah.
He showed up at the exact right time.
But he showed up with an attitude of compassion.
Yeah.
When he left, he was, again, that authoritarian. If he'd been given the Torah at that time, he would have stood up and declared, this is it. And, it would have just been rules and regulations.
Yes, yes.
But when he when he was able to bring forth the Torah from the attitude of a shepherd, it was with compassion. Look at Facebook posts and social media and even YouTube and teachers. I look at the demeanor. I look at the attitude in which a person teaches. Are they teaching from some kind of a high and lofty position, or are they teaching from a down here with the people? I remember going to a conference many years ago. I won't say when, where, or who, or whatever, but I went to this conference. There was it was in a hotel, and they had put the stage up, and somebody had kind of in the process of all of it, the hotel staff had made a mistake regarding the stage height. And so the stage was about 5 to 6 feet tall. Now, it wasn't a huge room, and the room was set up in such a way that, there was a natural slope to it. And so I was the first one teaching. Well, I looked at that stage, and I looked at the people, and I was introduced, and I walked up and I said, do you mind if we just grab with the music stand? Could you hand me a music stand from up there? And because, I'm not standing up there in the nosebleed section. I want to be down here with the people. Well, I could tell that a couple of the other teachers that were going to be following me didn't like what I did there, because they liked and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but, there's that place of, well, I like the stage. I like and it's just this attitude that you got to, as a teacher, you got to continually fight that. I don't like to be way up there above the people. And, I see churches with, with this big platform and all of this stuff. It turns my stomach. Give me a music stand and put me down with the people. That's where I want to be. And the moment that I lose that is I pray the moment that I'm no longer doing what I'm doing.
when we designed the room at House of David, we were coming out of a church system where it was, the platform, if you use that term, was, it was about 3 or 4 feet above the normal level of the floor. More often than not, I was down between the first two pews, Bible in one hand, microphone in the other. And that's what I did. So when we built the room for House of David or remodeled it, where we stand to lead worship is only 6 inches at the most, but we did that so that we'd have room to run wiring underneath the floor for the microphones and so forth. The idea was not to elevate. That's the idea of hierarchy. I remember visuals of colonial days that the parson or the pastor was in a little booth way up off the floor. We was looking way down as if the voice of God is coming through my head and down to you.
You see that in Europe. Catholic churches in Europe is crazy.
Visuals speak a lot. They say a lot. So the idea, Mike, is that those sitting in pews or chairs we call them the audience. What does that mean? That means that whatever they're looking at is the performance.
Yeah.
God's not looking for performers. He's looking for compassionate ministers. Yeshua did not elevate himself above the people, but he walked among them. He found ways to get his hands on the people.
Mm-hmm.
So when he encountered a leper, what we call a leper, he is the realm of the clean. He touched the unclean and brought the unclean into his realm. And that's the heart, I think, that the Father is asking us. If you do ministry of any sort, verbal, hands-on, behind the scenes, however you function or are called to do so, get in his realm and find ways of bringing people into that realm with you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're living in the ditch by your own choices, you don't have a whole lot to say to the people who are living in the ditch other than to commiserate with them.
Yeah.
But if you know how to live above the ditch, then you know how to reach in there and start bringing people out. Mm-hmm. But also to teach them, you don't have to live a ditch life anymore. This is how you live above and outside the ditch. Unfortunately, people, and I've seen this happen over and over again, they learn to survive in less than desired circumstances. And they call it, well, this is my normal. This is my life. Yes. This is just the way it is for me. And the way it's been phrased is, this is my lot in life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Yah is ever given a lot in life of destitute and deprived and depraved as his desire for anybody. Yeshua showed up and wanted everyone to come to the light.
Yeah.
As many as believed on him, he gave them the right, the authority, the privilege to become sons of Elohim, to redeem people. So if we're living in circumstances that are not desirable, don't allow yourselves to be convinced, well, this is just the way it is for me. Yah's got something better. The choice is whether you want something better or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and until we decide that we're going to walk in something better, or at least allow the Father to give us something that's better. The typical response is to drag people down to your level instead of, I need to go to a different level in life so that I can bring people to that. And I think that's back to the heart of the shepherd. This thing about I'll kind of go back to this a little bit. This thing about how do we portray the Torah to someone else? When Moshe was, when he was still in Egypt, he saw that the Egyptian beating up the Hebrew. We know that he killed the Egyptian. He buried him in the sand. The next day, he goes out, and the Hebrews that he sees fighting against each other, when he tries to break that up, they said, "What authority do you have over us?" So they were holding him at arm's length because he was coming at them with an authority of, "I'm better than you. I'm coming from the palace." But when he came back, again, he came with the attitude of a shepherd. Let's put this into something of today. We have this week. Okay, we got a couple days left of this week that we got to get through. I'm tired of hearing the songs in my head. I'm tired of the commercials. Don't tell me that it's all about the children when the commercials are about a ribbon on the hood of a Mercedes Benz. Okay, just get over it. But I see posts right now all over the place of, the paganism. This is not the right week to be doing that.
No.
Next week, ask people, do you feel a little empty this week? I may have something that can help you. But you come to people with the pagan, and wonder why they're like this at you and not wanting to listen. And so just wait until 9:00 in the morning on Saturday when they haven't gotten what they wanted, and they're despondent, they're depressed, and all that kind of stuff, and trying to figure out their finances. Then go to them and say, could we kind of talk about this a little bit? You might find a little bit more of an open attitude. So people, I'm around people and they say, they'll say Merry Christmas or whatever, and I don't get offended. I don't really like it. I look at them and say thank you, whatever, walk away. But occasionally you'll have somebody who get in a conversation. They'll say, "Well, do you believe it's a sin for me to celebrate Christmas?" I got a choice right there. I got a choice to condemn them by saying, yes, absolutely is. And you bring out Lou White's book of Fossilized Customs and start beating them over the head. Or I can look at them and say, I can't tell you that it's wrong for you, but what I can tell you is it's wrong for me.
Yeah.
It's wrong for me. I can't have anything to do with this time period in the world. I can't have any, then we're going to go from there to another holiday and another holiday and another holiday. I'm not going to say to someone that it's wrong for them. I'm going to say it's wrong for me. Now, if you want to have a conversation of why it's wrong for me, I'm open to that conversation. But I'm not just going to give a blanket condemnation to other people.
My understanding, Mike, would be that y'all loved me, used me, spoke to me when I still had a tree in my living room. When I didn't know what his name was, he heard me when I prayed. When he called me out of that I didn't put a tree up in my living room anymore. And I didn't call him by a name that I knew didn't belong to him. I did what was honorable. I called him by the name that I understand to be his authentic name.
Yeah.
If he's called you out of it, then don't return back to it and justify yourself for doing so. If he called you out of it, stay out of it. So, if he called you out and you've left it, don't ask me, is it all right for me to celebrate it and go back to it? No, it's not. If you're still there where you've always been, I'm going to leave you alone and let him speak to you the way he spoke to me. It's not my job to fix them.
Yeah.
It's my job to be faithful to walk where I am. Where I was temporary. Now, it was temporary for some 40 years, but it was temporary. I am working toward the permanent. And the only thing that is permanent is the kingdom and beyond. So, I have to understand my job right now is to remain teachable to the Ruach HaKodesh, to the Holy Spirit. Because I can't imagine that I've got it all right yet. So if I need to be corrected, if I need to walk more uprightly in some area, if I need to change my perspective and understanding of a text or a teaching, then I have to be agreeable to that when I am corrected. Be faithful where you are at until he gives you another step to take. That's all we can do.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's not my job to fix people.
And you mentioned the ditch. Okay, you mentioned we call it a gutter, a ditch, whatever. That you don't stand up on the curb and look down and point at the person that's in the ditch and judge them for where they are. At the same time, you don't get down and waller in the ditch. Well, I'm just going to get down there and get dirty again, and with all the filth that is the ditch, so that they can relate to me. No, I have to take my position of where I am. Reach down with the hand and call somebody up, but pointing fingers at a person and looking down upon them, that doesn't work real well. At the same time, I read the other day the words of Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul, and where he said, I have become all things to all people.
Right.
I think that's a misquoted, misunderstood verse. That it wasn't that he went out to the local restaurant and ordered bacon wrapped shrimp so that he could relate to those that were eating bacon wrapped shrimp.
Absolutely.
And that's been how that has been translated sometimes. No, he got into their lives. He was able to speak a language that they understood, but he did not become part of that life. He did not enter into sin in order to help redeem them from that. And Yeshua, the same thing. We could use this with him. Well, Yeshua, he entered into sin to understand who. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. But when he brought the authority, it was with a meekness. It was with humility. It was not with pointing a finger at them. And I think that's to me, that's the message of our day of, don't look at here's a thought for the day. A lot of times I'll put out during this time of year. Don't judge someone for what has not been revealed to them.
I don't know that you can say it any better than that.
But at the same time, don't excuse them for not studying to find out what should be revealed to them. I usually, when somebody talks to me about stuff like, these things, I'll look at them and say, do you really want to know? If somebody says, well, why don't you celebrate Christmas? You can go into some diatribe of all the reasons you don't. And they'll look at you and go, well, that's nice. You just wasted your breath. I had this happen to me years ago. You just wasted your breath. Or you can look at them and say, do you really want to know? And they're going to look at you a little strange. Hold your ground right there. Hold your ground. Let them come to the place of saying, yes, I really do want to know. And at that point, I'll look at, are you sure? Are you really sure? Because a person needs to make a defined choice whether they want to know something or not. Are they just being polite? A lot of people are just being polite.
Mm-hmm.
We were in Arizona. We lived in a Mormon community. We had a menorah on our front porch, 6 foot tall, not actually a menorah, a Hanukkah. There is a difference between the two. We had a 6 foot tall Hanukkah, and me and Kathy and the kids go out every night, and we light the Hanukkah. And so one day, it was a couple days before Christmas, my neighbor on one side knocked on the door. I opened the door, and he shoves this bag in my hand with 2 hand carved Christmas candles that he had done, and he said, "Okay, who are you, and what do you believe?" Well, I went into this like 20-minute thing of what I was doing, and he looked at me at the end and went, "That's nice," and turned around and walked off. And I thought, I just wasted 20 minutes of my life here,
yes,
and I got 2 candles for it that don't even light. Then my other neighbor on the other side, I called him and I said, "Hey, we're going to be lighting the Hanukkah. Would you like to come over?" And he goes, "Yeah, we've been we've been really hoping you would ask us." And they came over. We had a wonderful conversation. I don't know where it went, but here's my point in this. Don't take time. Don't give your valuable time for somebody that does not want to know the truth. Look for people that are wanting to know the truth, and then invest yourself into them.
Agreed. And is that not the Father's attitude as well? I'm looking for those who want to know the truth, and I will invest myself in them.
In fact, the word says his eyes run to and fro over the earth to see who he could show himself mighty to. Let's ask that we would be able to see those that he's seeing.
Well, I think that's words of wisdom. Thank y'all for joining us today for Foundations for Life. And thank you, Mike and Kathy, for making this past weekend a very special, memorable weekend. Enjoy very much the time of fellowship, staying up to midnight, 4 hours past Mike's bedtime, and fellowshipping. Some enjoyment.
Yeah, I don't know how I made it.
Yeah, Mike said he had to go home, do a detox and all that kind of stuff. So,
well, I mean, I did get kind of. It was difficult. I mean, because I was trying to rest up from being out there in the woods trying to find your golf balls.
What do you think, folks, when people look at you after they've lived in your house? So I'm going to have to go home and do a detox. Okay. Not sure what to think about that, but that's all good. I hope you're successful. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you for watching, for sharing, posting this video on your social media, and sharing it with your friends. We'll see you again next week.